It's quiz time! Abber slobber, doober loober floober. A, your mom, or B, the Rice's whale? If you picked the Rice's whale, then you'd be correct. But if you picked your mom, you'd be wrong. As your mom may be obese, she's not 60,000 pounds. Today's topic, the Rice's whale, and what might be our deepest, darkest episode yet. Sounds good. Let's jump in. The Rice's whale, otherwise known as Beleneptera riceae, is a member of the baleen whale family, that family being Belenepteridae. Now, this whale species specifically is considered to be one of our world's most rare whales. Very little is truly known about this species, and due to recent events, it may very well stay that way. I see we're starting with the grim news that I was trying to avoid at the beginning anyways. Now, let's get some much needed information out of the way for those who may not know. Now, a baleen whale is a whale that instead of having teeth has these plates called baleen. Now, baleen is made out of keratin, and hundreds of these plates grow downwards in the mouth of the whale. Now, they use this for filter feeding, and we'll talk more about feeding later on in the video, but this specific species, the Rice's whale, has a deep-rooted history with lots of crinks and turns in it. So, buckle your seatbelt because the Dingle Doober machine is taking us back in time! Let's scroll back, let's say, 147 years to the year 1879, where our story begins with a whole nother species. 1879. The Eden's whale, otherwise known as Beleneptera edeni, was described due to a small baleen whale that was found stranded in Myanmar. The whale was named to recognize Ashley Eden, the Chief Commissioner of British Burma, now known as Myanmar, who actually helped save the first specimen for science. We then spend about 34 years before our next time landmark, 1913. In 1913, the Brid's whale, otherwise known as Beleneptera bridi, is described from baleen whales who were caught by whalers off the coast of South Africa. See, this species was named after Johan Bride, a Norwegian who built the first whaling station in South Africa. Now, let's skip about 37 years. This takes us to 1950. In 1950, the Eden's whale and the Brid's whale were grouped together as a singular species. This species was known as Beleneptera edeni. The English common name for this species was the Brid's whale. Years upon years of debate followed this decision, as scientists, specifically marine biologists, argue whether they should be grouped as a singular species. Now let's move 4 more years. 1954. It's now 1954, and a skull of a Brid's-like whale is found off the coast of Louisiana. This whale skull was archived at the Louisiana State University Museum of Natural Sciences. Alright, leapfrog us 11 years to 1965. A scientist by the name of Dale W. Rice published his first evidence of the Brid's whale's presence in the Gulf of Mexico. Now buckle in, because this is a fat jump, and it takes us 34 years from 1965. 1999. We're getting real close to modern day now. In 1999, the NOAA Southeast Fisheries Science Center scientists found that the population of Brid's whale that resided in the Gulf of Mexico were year-round residents. Intriguing. Dingle Doober machine, move us 4 years into the future. 2003. In 2003, Japanese scientists describe a separate baleen whale species. They named this species the Umura's whale, Beleneptera omurai. This was done based on skull and genetic analysis of mitochondrial DNA. Beleneptera omurai is very closely related to the Brid's whale and was named after Hideo Umura, who is a well-known researcher at the Whales Research Institute in Tokyo, Japan. Alright, let's skip 16 years to 2019. In 2019, a Brid's-like whale beaches on the Gulf Coast of Florida. This whale is genetically analyzed and confirmed to be the then Gulf of Mexico Brid's whale. Scientists performed a necropsy, which is a non-human autopsy, and collected the entire specimen, including an intact skull. I can smell current day. Move us to 2021, where our next event takes place. In 2021, a formal scientific description of the bridge-like whales in the Gulf of Mexico as Rice's whales, B. riceae, is published. It was found that morphological features in the skull and a very high degree of genetic divergence actually distinguish them from all other bridge-like whale species and subspecies. Whoa! Now that was a doozy. Take us home! 2026, current day. Welcome back, everyone. Specifically voice, and I'm sorry for those who hate history lessons because I just gave you a really long one. Now, I forgot to mention that the bridge whales and Eden's whale are considered subspecies of the same species now, that species being known as Beleneptera edeni. Now, let's get back to the Rice's whale. As I stated a lot of times now, very little is actually known about this species. We don't know things like lifespan, actual reproduction rates, actual reproduction times, and habits of reproduction. We can only really speculate based off of their closest relatives, that being the bridge whale or bridge whale, as I said during the video. That info that is speculated are things such as the fact that they reach sexual maturity at 9, mate possibly every 2 to 3 years, and possibly mate year-round with no specific dates to mating, and speculatively, mothers may raise their calves up to 12 months. Things like the actual times and the actual numbers of these things, other things such as defense mechanism, male and calf maximum weight and length are completely unknown. Now, I just gave you a tall order of things we don't know, so let's jump into what we do know. Appearance. Like the bridge whales, these guys are smaller than the sei whales. Rice's whales have 3 prominent ridges in front of their blowholes, and yes, I said blowholes, plural, as baleen whales have 2 instead of 1. Now, their body is sleek, and their pectoral fins are slender and pointed. They are a dark gray on top and have a belly that ranges in color from pale to pink. Their heads actually make up a quarter of their body length, and they have a broad tail and a strongly hooked and pointed dorsal fin 2/3 the way of its body. Location. As suggested by our history lesson earlier, Rice's whales appear to be year-round residents of the Gulf of Mexico. Most of their sightings and acoustic detections have been in the northeastern Gulf off the west coast of Florida, but they have been heard near the western Gulf offshore of Louisiana and Texas. Interestingly enough, in the 18th and 19th centuries, there were whaling logbooks that suggested that the Rice's whales were further distributed in the Gulf of Mexico, maybe even living on the coasts of Mexico, but no sightings have been confirmed outside the Gulf of Mexico. Size. Now, the only specimens that have been observed of this species are females, and from what is known, the maximum length of a female that has been observed is 12.65 meters, that is 41.5 feet in bald eagle. And as for the maximum weight of these females, they can get up to 30,000 kilograms, that is about 66,138.7 pounds. Behavior, diet, and hunting habits. Very little is known about these guys' behaviors, diets, and hunting habits, but according to the NOAA Fisheries Species Directory, the limited data available shows that the 2 tagged individuals spent most of their days diving near the floor to feed, and majority of their nights within 50 feet of the water surface. This actually puts them at a greater risk of vessel strikes. Data also suggests that there is a high chance that this species prefers feeding on high energy content schooling fish, such as the silver rag driftfish. Now, as for hunting habits, it appears that like other baleen whales, these guys will engulf large amounts of water, straining it through their baleen plates, catching their prey before swallowing it. Now, all of you pressed on a video that stated the plight of the Rice's whale, so the sad news isn't coming. It's estimated that there's less than 100 of these guys in the wild. Furthermore, these guys are incredibly susceptible to noise pollution and vessel strikes. As mentioned earlier, they spend their entire nighttime 50 feet from the water surface. So you can just imagine how frequently they may get struck. All right. Furthermore, like to add on to what is already a huge tower of disadvantages, the gas and oil industry actually disbenefits these guys because it adds to the noise pollution and possible collisions. Now, let me go further. It is estimated that the Deepwater Horizon oil spill took 22% of these guys' ecological ranges, completely destroyed it, displaced them from that area of the Gulf of Mexico. And even with all of these horrid things, it appears that the United States of America's government doesn't think that that's quite enough danger for the Rice's whale. Now, context will be key in this segment, so bear with me here. The God Squad. The God Squad, otherwise known as the Endangered Species Committee, was created around the year 1978. Now, this committee is known as the God Squad because they can actually decide to override the Endangered Species Act on economic grounds. People called them the God Squad because they considered this playing God. Now, the history in this topic is very deep, so be sure to do your own research on these next coming parts. Now, as for who makes up this committee, that would be the Secretary of the Interior, the Secretary of Agriculture, the Secretary of the Army, the Chair of the Council of Economic Advisors, the Environmental Protection Agency's Administration, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration Administrator, and one individual from each affected state. These decisions are also oftentimes open to the public. Keep that in mind. Now, this committee has only ever met 4 times since its creation. They only convene when someone files an application to be exempt from the Endangered Species Act, and they have only ever overturned the Endangered Species Act twice. One of those times, the decision was actually reversed. That was until current president DJT created an executive order that made the committee obligated to meet quarterly to, and I quote, identify obstacles to domestic energy infrastructure specifically deriving from the implementation of the ESA or the Marine Mammal Protection Act, regardless of whether an exemption was filed or not. This is their words, not mine, mind you. And as always, do your own research. Now, to give further context, public input, as I mentioned earlier, is a legal obligation in this exemption process, and this was skipped when they decided to lift the restrictions on oil drilling in the Gulf of Mexico. To add salt to the wound, it took under 20 minutes for this committee to decide that oil drilling was allowed in the Gulf of Mexico. Experts consistently suggest that this is going to be catastrophic for the Rice's whale, along with countless other endangered species in the region. Furthermore, they worry that if the government can decide to lift protections on marine mammals such as whales and manatees, then what might they do to other protected regions such as Alaska? Now, once again, I urge you, no, I implore you to do your own research, but from my research, it appears that this decision may be why we lose this creature before we've truly gotten to understand it. What can you do? If you see a Rice's whale, report it. Also, decrease vessel speed when in the area, and last but not least, support the conservationists who are fighting the good fight and attempting to keep these critters and many others safe. If you can't donate, like. If you can't like, share. Do everything you can do to make sure that these critters have a fighting chance at life. And as always, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and don't forget to